Yeah. Hey, Dean. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I was left after our retreat the other day with a question. And I run the risk of misquoting you, which is a terrible thing to do. I've realized that one shouldn't stick one's neck out like that.
Yes.
But
But
I
I am sadly getting used to it.
yes, yeah, and you will pick me up on it if I do misquote
Yeah.
you, I'm sure.
Hmm.
I seem to remember you saying that was the effect that humans have the gift of meditation, and that you didn't think that other animals or parts of the kind of natural world
Hmm.
had that.
Hmm.
Um, and am I okay am I okay up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're good.
okay, right.
Hmm.
I find that really weird.
Hmm.
Because I guess I interpreted it as saying that, in a sense, humans are the only ones who have the ability to kind of rest in their awareness. And yet, without any evidence at all, I kind of instinctively feel like the natural world rests in awareness.
Hmm.
And we're the complicated ones who really struggle to do it.
Hmm.
And this is just a sort of, I guess, a fantasy that I've had. And it sounded like you don't think that doesn't kind of comply with, or that doesn't square with the way that you think. And I'm just really curious to hear how like how you think about that, because it just, like, I don't know, I look up at the birds in the sky, or I look at the trees, and I feel like we learn from them. It's almost like they've mastered something that we've yet to master, which is just to kind of like to float or to wave or to whatever it is without actually having to stress. And so, yeah, I know it's a fantasy, but I'm just curious to hear what your
Hmm.
response is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you called me out on this because I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about in this case. When I said that, I believe I was actually quoting my old teacher Maharishi, saying how the so-called lower beings, lower stages of evolution, their nervous systems are not quite developed enough to entertain the boundlessness of awareness. So if we were a little bit less evolved, we couldn't meditate. If we were a little bit more evolved, and what he was reflecting there is the traditional understanding coming out of Vedic culture or Hindu culture. That's the traditional understanding, and that you go through all these lifetimes and work your way up the evolutionary scale and finally get to be a human, where you've got a nervous system that is sufficiently sophisticated to reflect boundless awareness, enlightenment. And he went on to say that if we were a little bit more enlightened, because again, in that traditional scale of things, then there are higher beings. There are more developed, angelic beings, celestial beings, what are called devas in the traditional language, who they don't have to meditate. You can't get them to meditate because the celestial realms are so blissful that you can't get them to close their eyes. you know, so they don't have to. So that we're in this kind of funny in between place. Where we can just it's like if we just stand up on our toes a little higher, we can reach that thing. Now, is that traditional understanding the absolute truth? I don't know. I don't know. I can't confirm what a coyote experiences or what a sea urchin experiences or what a deva experiences. There In the meditation tonight, I cited Sri Ramana with his, wonderful, great, complete meditation instruction. Let what comes come, let what goes go, see what remains. And he was one of the great, great awakened sages of the mid 20th century. And Yafa and I have visited his ashram in Tiruvannamalai at the foot of Arunachala, the so-called holy hill, where he sat in a cave for 7 years. And in the ashram there's statues and graves of a couple of his pet animals. He had as I recall, a crow and a cow and a dog. And he said that at least, I think the cow, he definitely said that the cow was enlightened. And there's a whole story about when that cow was dying and how he sat there and he and the cow just peering into each other's eyes and just being in the beingness together. Beautiful story. So he had a different opinion. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think no, but not we don't know,
Yeah.
but I find it's the it's a bit like the ocean and the wave, but it's like, and I think we talked about this a bit at the meditation. It's the sort of the metaphorical aspect of nature. Sometimes does seem to act like a kind of a bridge or a guide towards that sort of
Yes.
awareness.
And I think that's what I'm always looking for is what's useful, what's helpful to us in our own path of development. What's like the truth, what's not the truth, I don't know. But what works? What works? And so thank you for pointing that up, because that certainly I think we can all attest to, that we can look to the natural world for inspiration. There's a wonderful several lines from Walt Whitman's song of Myself. I don't have the text right here, but you can look this up. It starts with something like, I think I could go and live with the animals. And he says how they're all so self-contained and not one of them complains. They don't sit there agonizing about their duty to God, or and they're not caught up in the madness of money and things. So that's like drawing inspiration. Whether to whatever degree we can say it's just a metaphorical reality or a neurological, a biological reality, I don't know, and it may not matter. What matters to me more is, does it inspire our own? Oh, we can use it. Yeah. Oh, this is what it looks like. In Zen art, a lot of Chinese and Japanese art and Zen art, there's a lot of cats and frogs, right? Because cats and frogs are both very good at sitting very still for a long time, right? And you can look, and especially some of these, and probably you could Google these days, Google, Zen art cats or Zen art frogs or Chinese brush painting, Japanese brush painting cats, frogs, and you'll probably come up with some lovely examples. The way they're drawn there, that just captures that stillness. And it's like, oh yeah, that's what it's like. Okay, there's a whole meditation instruction right there. Sit like that frog. Sit like that cat. What you won't see in that art is a lot of dogs. Right? Because dogs they're frantic. They don't sit with that kind of tranquility.
Thanks.
Or just drawing inspiration from a pond, from the trees. You know, you wrote me that lovely note, Henry, after the retreat about just walking around in the yard back here, and the trees and the sky, and yeah, just look up at a cloud and yeah, there it is. There's beingness. Good. So thank you for calling me out on that because I was speaking a little bit imprecisely there.
Thanks.
Good. Okay.
Maybe humans are the only animals that are fully conscious of being conscious,
Yeah.
and other animals are present in the moment all the time, which is why like cats and cranes and a bunch of other animals just look like they're meditating a lot, but
Mhm.
they don't have any choice to be anywhere else but in the moment. They haven't eaten from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as
Yeah.
humans are the only animals that have. And
Yeah.
so we have that choice.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds right to me. Thank you so much for that. That really sounds right to me. Um, that and it's very similar to the way people idealize childhood. The wisdom of children. Um, we've talked a lot about Salinger's stories. And in a way, this is a place where we can question some of Salinger's stuff. The way he the children are the enlightened ones, and then when you grow up, you lose that. Um,
Oh, you froze.
I'm sorry.
You
Oh,
cut
I
out for a
just said
second.
you froze.
Oh, okay, okay. We okay now? Okay. So yeah, animal children and we could say animals are in a situation of what some psychologists or philosophers have called primary naivete. Right? Yes, they're innocent. They're just living in the moment. They're not caught up in future stuff and past stuff and all that because that's all they have. But they're not. They're, as you say, they're not fully conscious of that simple, all-embracing consciousness. And that, as the story goes, we have to fall from grace and then find our way. We have to eat of the tree of duality, right? Eat from the fruit of the tree of duality, and then have our adventures being caught up in the world of duality, where there's good and bad, and shame and fame, and you suffer pain and pleasure and all that, and work through that, and then somehow claw our way back, but now to what's called secondary naivete, where we can have the full appreciation of the just being,
The redemption.
the redemption. Yeah, it's the archetypal journey. There's got to be the fall and the redemption. There's got to be you don't miss the water till the well runs dry. Somehow we have to get lost in the dream and then wake up. And there's a wonderful thing Rupert Spira has said about this stuff, which is, and this was in response to someone saying that, it's like I had this wonderful awakening and it went on for days or weeks or whatever, and I felt this is it. I'm stick a fork in me. I'm done. I've completed the spiritual journey, and then I lost it. Which is a very typical thing, actually. Some people here have probably gone through that, and I know I have, and it's just that, and then just you mourn the loss of that. And Rupert said, finding that awakening, he says, finding it is grace. Losing it is grace. And in a way, losing it is the greater grace, because then you have to find your way back and then you really make it yours. So I find that just deeply beautiful and deeply true. Yeah.
That's part of why you do this with us, because you get to rediscover it again over and over through our eyes.
You caught me. You got me. Yeah.